Hello. So, my name is Whitney, and I did a lot of research. I am not a doctor. I did my own research, and of course, I watched a lot of YouTube videos. So, I had some free time. I'm not really doing anything, so I pretty much just wanted to come to you and kind of just tell my side of the story on how I use castor oil to induce my labor. So today is November the 3rd. My due date is originally November the 5th. Um so got down to my last few weeks of pregnancy and just a lot of discomfort, a lot of pain, pressure. I had even had a membrane sweep and my cervix checked. A lot of walking, especially on Halloween. I did a lot of door to door walking with my daughter. I have a 7-year old. Um, so pretty much I did look into like different things as far as what to try. I did get like some midwives brew stuff, and I did try some of that. It was so disgusting. Like I probably only got maybe 1 cup down, two maybe. But as far as the whole dosage of what is recommended, I did not even get to half of that mess. However, it did, give me um, contractions, but it wasn't contractions that lasted. It eventually did go away. Um, Excuse me. So yeah, it did go away. It didn't last at all. Um, what else? So, it lasted about 2 hours. Um, it didn't. It eventually went away. Excuse me, my lips is really dry. So, it did eventually went away. Um, so I kind of just let that be, and I didn't take any more. It was kind of really disgusting. I kind of threw it down the drain, and that was it for that. I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna try anything else. And me and my cousin was actually pregnant at the same time. Her due date was November the 7th. Mine was November the 5th. And she had, the membrane sweep on the same. We had both hours on the same exact day. She went in labor 2 days afterwards and actually had her baby on my birthday, which was October 27th, which was the same day I ended up being in the hospital because I had drank that stuff the night before. But I mean, it gave me contractions for about 2 hours, nothing serious, went away. Um, so I decided, like, let me just try maybe just doing the castor oil. That I think I could get that down a little faster than that midwife's brew. So I pretty much went out and got some orange juice and the castor oil. Now, keep in mind, I had a membrane sweep. I was 2 centimeters dilated. I did go to my appointment November the 1st. My doctor did give me, like, some recommendations on, spicy foods, sex, more walking, and all that good stuff. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll do the sex. So, um, so I did. November the 1st, after my doctor's appointment, I did go and I had gotten the castor oil, some orange juice, and around about 4 o'clock, um, I took 3 tablespoons and I just took it like a shot. And I had some orange juice and I just chug it down. I drank like the whole bottle of orange juice to, kind of down it. That was around about 4 o'clock. Around about 5, I did decide, hey, let's have sex. So we had some sex, and so yeah, that. And then around about 7-ish, 7:30, close to 8 o'clock, my stomach started just getting tightening pains. Like I'll say maybe every 10 or 15 minutes. Didn't really think nothing of it because I have had a lot of Braxton hits. A lot of Braxton hits. So, and they always stomach tightening, irregular, nothing serious. So around about, like I said, 7:30, 8 o'clock ish, I, felt it, continued to feel it. And then, so around about 8, I pretty much decided to like start, like they kind of got a little bit more intense. So that's when I kind of start paying attention. Maybe like an hour later into it, I start paying more attention to it, and it got just a little bit more intense. I'm like, okay. Um, like I said, didn't really think much about it. Around about 9 o'clock, they got even more intense, um, and it was pretty painful. It felt like, of course, the diarrhea cramps, but I never had the diarrhea. Like, I didn't get the diarrhea, surprisingly. I did end up eating some food, some collard greens, and some mashed potatoes and some hamburger. Which I didn't eat much of the collard greens because I felt like that would cramp my stomach even more. I love collards, but of course we all know when you eat like greens type food, it kind of runs you off a little bit more than other type of foods. um, so I started getting even more cramps, and I'm like, well, oh, I probably should never ate those collards after I drank castor oil earlier. So I kind of, had to poo. I did go to the bathroom about 10 o'clock and tried to poo. Um, it definitely wasn't diarrhea. So I just had one good bowel movement. Well, my stomach continued. I continued to cramp. My contractions mainly felt like a lot of lower back pain, um, just back contractions, a lot of it. I felt it's tightening in the front, my lower abdomen, but I mainly felt a lot in my lower back. Um, so, I would say around about 11 ish, it kind of really got like, and like I said, the last time I had went to poo, I saw a little blood, down there. I started spotting, so and they, like I said, they continue. So of course, I got my spouse up, and I'm like, I think it's time to go to the doctor. I've been, having pains for a while. They've been consistent, and I'm starting to bleed. I'm spotting. Um, like I said, I did do 2 bowel movements, no diarrhea, just 2 bowel movements. Um, and then I start getting spotting around about 11:30. So we, get in the car, head to the hospital. Contractions. My contractions felt really weird. Um, I had a big one, and then followed behind that big one, I would have a little one, and then I would get like a 5 minute break. Then I'll have a huge one, and then I'll go back to like having a smaller one, and then I'll have about a 5 to 8 minute break, and it just continue on like that. So, I got to the hospital, it was still continue. Of course, they stated, yeah, we don't know if you're in labor. We're just gonna monitor you for a little bit and see how things go. They put me on a monitor, and they actually noticed that I was having, she called them double up contractions. And I was like, yeah, that's, how it's been feeling. I'll have a big one, and then it'll follow behind like a smaller one. And then it'll give me a break, and then it just it continues on. Well, she, of course, did my vitals. I had to pee in a cup, check my urine. She did check my urine and stated, hey, you're dehydrated. We're just going to give you a bag of fluids and see if that helps space out your contractions, because right now you're doubling up or They call it stacking contractions, and that's a sign to show that you're dehydrated. So they wanted to make sure I was getting enough of fluids. So I sat there, I went through the bag of fluids, and it did correct my contractions from doubling up, and instead they spread it out. I had one nice big contraction, a pause, and then another one, a pause, another one. So they then spaced out to about 10 minutes, one contraction every about 8 to 10 minutes, one contraction. So um so that's how that went. They, watched for the baby movement, and that was good. The contractions spaced out, the fluids worked with helping up with the stacking contractions and the dehydration. So, of course, I was released at 2 o'clock, and then I was sent back home. They gave me some a muscle relaxer pill. I did take it. They did inform me, yeah, it's going to make you feel drowsy, and you're not in labor, you're just dehydrated, or that's what they told me. Or it could be a possibility that you're maybe in like the early stages of labor, or you should be going in labor in a couple of days. No, I was in labor. So they did send me back home around about 2 o'clock. I got back, laid down, and I did the Flexeron stuff, did make me feel drowsy and sleepy. So, of course, during a few minutes, I would sleep, I would doze off, and then I wake up and I was like, oh, the contraction. Like, it was just, and it was more intense, more intense. And I'm like, why did they send me home again? So, it was just more intense. And, so it was getting even stronger and stronger to the point where I started crying like so bad. I'm like, I don't understand why they tell me, like, why would they give me this? They send me back home. This not helping. This muscle relax stuff is not helping. It have not stopped anything. I'm still having these contractions. They're coming even closer. I know for sure I'm in labor. Like, they can't tell me I'm not in labor. I've been having these pains since 7:30. They've just been getting intense, more intense, um, coming more closer. So my very last contraction I remember having, it was right at 6 o'clock. And that contraction was long. It was hard. I was like, it was like, oh my God, oh my God. As soon as the contraction went away, gush. I'm laying in the bed, 6 o'clock in the morning. After being from the hospital since about 2:30ish, I was released at 2, got home in bed at 2:30, dozed off, on and off, on and off. Still had contractions, still getting closer together. I wasn't even timing them. I was so doped up off of what they gave me. I didn't even time them, but I noticed that, of course, they just never went away. And then all of a sudden, 6 o'clock, that last contraction I remember waking up from, because it was so intense, and I started getting teary-eyed. It started hurting so bad, and I'm like, why would they send me, And then, like, soon after that contraction started to come down, gush. I was like, oh my God, my water just broke. My spouse, I'm like, hey honey, like, my water broke. He's like, it's like, he's like turning over like, oh yeah, whatever. And he flips over and lays back down. I said, but babe. So then I started like whining, babe, my water did break. Like, we gotta go back to the hospital. I'm hurting still. And he's like, are you serious? And I was like, yes, my water just broke. He just couldn't believe it. So we got up, and we got up. I did, get my clothes and stuff back on, and we headed back to, got in the car in the hospital, 30 minutes away. So we got back to the hospital. He did call while I was on the way, just to tell them, hey, we're coming back. Her water's broken this time. We're coming. We're on the way back. So he did call. The contractions, it was a little bit better once my water broken. It's like once that broken, they won't. My contractions was still there every 5 minutes, but I was not getting them like all the way in my back, like a deep contraction in my back. I was just getting them mainly in my front abdominal, like. So I can say once my water actually broken, it didn't seem like it was a whole. It wasn't as painful. It was like a little bit of a relief. Maybe because the bag wasn't tightening with the contraction, so maybe it felt a little bit relief. But of course, it was longer, so that didn't make it better. Because once I got, my water broken, I got those contractions. It just seemed longer. So we ended up going back to the hospital. Um, we had to go through registration again. And I'm like, I just left from here. We had to go through the process, sign in and all that, get a room. And so I checked and they swabbed me and stuff. They're like, yeah, yeah, your water is broke. You're about 5 centimeters. Before around about 2 o'clock, I was three. Before I left from the hospital, I was 3 centimeters. Um, and when I came back and they checked my water after, checked me after my water broke, I was at a 5. Um, Round 6, that's when I was at a 5. Of course, I was screaming, I need medicine, I need pain medicine, I need epidural. About an hour later, they came in, did my blood work, and then I, of course, again, then I had my epidural, about 7 o'clock, about 7:30 ish, and so after that, um, about 8 o'clock, I started feeling relief from the pain and stuff. So I was able to sleep, get some rest, get a nap, and I'll say around about 10:30 ish, it started to wear off. I start feeling like a lot of pressure about 10:30. And of course, they came in. Hey, we're gonna come in about 30 minutes and check you. Um, we're gonna check you. So right at about 11 o'clock, they came back in about 11 to 11:15, and they checked me, and they said, "Oh, well, you're fully dilated. You're feeling the pressure because he's right there and he's ready to come on out, and it's gonna be time to push." Oh, so I went from a, I went, around about 5 to 7 o'clock. I went from about a 4 to being fully dilated right at about 11 o'clock. And to be honest, I think I was fully dilated around about 10:30, but I didn't get checked until after 11. So that's when it was confirmed. My doctor, who was on call for me, um, she was actually in the middle of a C-section delivery. So she was in the operating room. So they did tell me, if I can hold off for about 30 minutes, that'll be fine, which I was okay with, holding off or whatever, because I had just woken up. Just woken up and had got checked. So, I had to get myself ready and prepared and up. Called my spouse because he had just left to go get something to eat. And as soon as I called him, he was so mad at me. He was like, I was like, honey, you probably should have waited until I got checked. And he was like, yeah, but they said 30 minutes. So I was just going to go run out and, get some food and gas and come on back or whatever. I was like, yeah, I know. But as soon as they did come back in, they said, help, well, it's time to start pushing. You're fully dilated. So, we pretty much, waited out for, I would say, about 45 minutes. That gave it enough of time for my spouse to come on back. She ended up finishing up some things, the C-section surgery in the operation room she had to do. So I would say I started pushing around right at about 12, 11:50-ish. And at this point, I had waited so long to push. Like, I waited 45 minutes to an hour to finally like get in position to push. Of course, they came in and prepped everything they had to do. So it was just a waiting process, which I was okay with. Like I said, I was just waking up. I wanted to get myself together, get prepared for it as well as the nurse and the doctor. They was getting prepared too. And So yeah, the only thing was the fact that my contractions, he had been dilated, fully dilated, to the point where my contractions was really not there. Um, they wasn't consistent. Once it seemed like once I got to 10, they was no longer consistent. They would just come here and there. So I would just feel pressure here and there. And that would probably be about every 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. Um, so with that being said, when it was time to start pushing, I had to push during the contraction, which was very inconsistent. So I would get a contraction, I would be able to push for, right at, I'll say about 2 minutes. I would push, and then I would have to wait about 10 minutes for another contraction to come just to help, get the pushing going. So it slowed it down. Um, so I can say it took about 30, probably about 30 minutes just to get him out because of how inconsistent the contractions were. It was to the point where we had to give me more medicine to pick up contractions so I could go ahead on and push him out instead of him just sitting. Um, so yeah, that was a process. I felt everything of that, all the pressure. I felt his head sitting there, and it was just sitting there. We were just sitting there, and waiting. It was just like a waiting process for another contraction, just to push some more to get him to come down a little bit more. So yeah, it was it was worth it. It was worth it. So with that being said, yes, I did use castor oil and orange juice to induce my labor. I did it at 39 weeks and 3 days. And for me, it gave me contractions about 4 hours later, which led to a little bit of spotting and bleeding a few hours in, which also led to my water breaking. And it led to my beautiful son named Eden Alexander. Oh, he done wiggled off some, but here he is. He's sleeping, he's sleeping, he's sleeping. But like I said, speak with your doctor, or midwife, or nurse, or any type of healthcare professional. I did this at my own risk. It did work for me. However, you will get some very intensified contractions. Um, but hey, the way I see it, contractions hurt, period. Whether you have them in your lower stomach, your upper stomach, your back, your butt. Like, I feel all of that. Like, I felt contractions everywhere. And like I stated, I did have me 2 bowel movements, but I did not get the diarrhea stuff. I didn't get it. And I'm surprised because most of the time I've take castor oil, I do get the runs, and I didn't have it. I just had me 2 good bowel movements, contractions. I did have bleeding after having contractions for so long, and of course my water did break, which is a first. um, so thanks for viewing, thanks for watching, thanks for listening to my story, and everyone have a wonderful day. Oh, my son, he was born at 12:12 p.m. on 11/2. He is 7 pounds, 9 ounces, and 21 inches. All right. Thanks for watching.